look more like them, come to trust that person to greater extent. If the now more similar faces of a political candidate, they become more willing to vote for him or her. Place. There is another usually reliable cue of high-tended genetic commonality. It has less to do with physical similarity than with physical proximity. It is the perception of being of the same place as another, and its impact on human behavior can be arresting. I know of no better way of documenting that impact than by resolving some puzzles of human conduct that surfaced during one of the most harrowing eras of our time, the years of the Holocaust. Let's begin Holocaust. के भयो त्यस्तो आया आया भन्नेसम्म what happened to you what happened to you. Let's begin with the physically smallest installation of one's place and then move to more expanded forms. Home. Humans as well as animals react to those present in their homes while growing up as if they are relatives, although this clue to relatedness can be misleading occasionally. It is normally accurate because people in the home typically are family members. In addition, the longer the length of residing together in the home, the greater if its effect on individuals' sense of family and accordingly their willingness to sacrifice for one another. But there is a related factor that produces these same consequences without extensive time together. When people observe their parents caring for the needs of another in the home, they also experience a family like feeling and become more willing to give to that other. An intriguing offshoot of this process is that children who see their parents open their homes to a range of differing people should be more likely, as adults, to help strangers. For them, greenness should reach beyond their immediate or extended family and apply to the human family as well. How does this insight help solve a major mystery of the Holocaust? Holocaust. Holocaust. What is Holocaust? मम्मीकोबाट मेरो अर्को फोन ल्याउ न सानो सानो छ क्या त्यहाँ कम्पनीको फोन मम्मीकोमा चार्जमा राखेको छु क्या मैले ल्याउ न हौ यता यहाँ तिमी छिटो न म यहाँ उ गर्दै गर्छु क्या तिमीले हेर्नु परेन म आफै सर्च गर्छु नि त त्यस्तो भयो भने बस CAUST. History records the name of the most famous and successful helpers of the era. Raoul Wallenberg, the courageous swell, whose relentless rescue efforts eventually cost him his life, and the German industrialist Oskar Stendler, whose list saved 1,100 Jews. Yet, what might have been the most effective concentrated helping action taken during the time of the Holocaust? त्यो खाने बित्तिकै सुतेर हो कि तिमीलाई पेट दुखे खास अलि एकछिन ठाडो बस न आधी घन्टा एक घन्टा जति ठाडो बस्ने गर के त्यहाँभन्दा कहिले बस्यौ तिमी Yet what might have been the most effective concentrated helping action taken during the time of the Holocaust has gone relatively unrecognized in the years since. It began near dawn on a summer day in 1940 when 200 Polish Jews crowded together outside the Japanese consulate in Lithuania to plead for help in their attempts to escape the sweeping Nazi advance through Eastern Europe. That they would choose to seek the aid of Japanese officials represents a puzzle in itself. At the time, the governments of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan had close ties and shared interests. Indeed, it was only a few months later, in September 1940, that Japan, Germany, and Italy signed the Tripartite Pact, formally declaring themselves allies. When then would these Jews and hated targets of the Third Reich throw themselves on the mercy of one of Adolf Hitler's international partners? What possible yet could they expect from Japan? Before its close strategic associations with Nazi Germany developed in the late 1930s, Japan had allowed displaced Jews easy access to Japanese territories as a way of gaining some of the financial resources and political goodwill that the international Jewish community could provide in return, because support for the plan remained strong within some circles in Japan. The government never revoked completely its policies of granting travel visas to European Jews. The paradoxical result was that in the pre-war years, as most of the countries of the world, the United States included, were turning away the desperate prey of Hitler's final solution. It was Japan, Hitler's ally, that provided them sanctuary in the Japanese-controlled Jewish settlement of Shanghai, China, and the city of Kobe, Japan. By July 1940, then, when 200 of the prey massed outside the door of the Japanese consulate in Lithuania, they knew that the man behind the door offered their best and perhaps last chance for safety. His name was Chiun Sugihara, and by all appearances he was an unlikely candidate to arrange for their salvation. A mid-career diplomat, Sugihara had become Japan's consul general in Lithuania by virtue of 16 years of committed and obedient service in a variety of earlier posts. The right credentials facilitated his rise within the diplomatic corps. He was the son of a government official and a samurai family. He had set his professional goal high, becoming proficient in the Russian language in hopes of someday being the Japanese ambassador to Moscow. Like his better-known counterpart Oscar Schindler, Mr. Sugihara was a great lover of games, music, and parties. On the surface, therefore, there was little to suggest that this comfortable, pleasure-seeking, lifelong diplomat would risk his career, reputation, and future to try to save the strangers who woke him from a sound sleep early one morning. That tough, that though is what he did, with full knowledge of the potential consequences for him and his family. After speaking with members of the crowd waiting outside his gate, Sugihara recognized their plight plight लेखा त यहाँ लेख्नु पर्यो PLIGST PLIGST. When Persian, who is this? Durdasa. Firing with Tokyo for permission to authorize travel visas for them. Although aspects of Japan's lenient visa and settlement policies were still in place for Jews, Sugihara's superiors at the foreign ministry worried that to continue those policies would damage Japan's diplomatic relations with Hitler as a consequence. His request was denied, as were his more urgent second and third petitions. It was at that point in his life, age 40, with the hint of prior disloyalty or disobedience, that this personally indulgent, professionally ambitious career official did what no one could have suspected. He began writing the needed travel documents in outright defiance of his defiance भनेको के रहेछ defiance DEFIANCE 13 अवज्ञा defiance लेख नि त of his clearly stated and twice restated orders. That choice shattered his career. Within a month, Sugihara was transferred from his consul general post to a much diminished position outside of Lithuania, where he could no longer operate independently. Ultimately, he was expelled from the foreign ministry of insubordination. Insubordination. In dishonor, after the war, he sold light bulbs for a living, but in the weeks before he had to close the consulate in Lithuania, Sugihara stayed true to the choice he had made, interviewing applicants from early morning to late night and completing the papers required for their escape. Even after the consulate had been shut and he had taken up residence in a hotel, he continued to write visas. Even after the strain of the task had left him thin and exhausted, even after the same strain had left his wife incapable of nursing their infant child, he wrote without respite भनेको respite RESPIT respite. Om Kumari, welcome. Thank you for like without respite. He wrote without. Yes, PITE. राहत भी नहीं लेखेको अरे even on the platform for the train said to take him from his petitioners. Even on the train itself, he wrote and thrust life-granting papers into life-grasping hands, saving thousands of innocents in the process. And at last, when the train began to draw him away, he bowed deeply and apologized to those he had to leave stranded, begging their forgiveness for his deficiencies as a helper. As a helper. म पहिला मोबाइल लिएर आउँछु ल यसलाई उतापट्टि फर्काउँछु अनि फेरि गीत नबजाउने मैले उयो गरेर ल त्यही होस् न म उयो लिएर आउनु लाग्यो कि सकेकै छैन पढेर मम्मी मोबाइल दिनु त कम्पनीको मोबाइल हो ल कसको मोबाइल त यति सानो भन्छ मम्मी मम्मीको एक्सएक्स म्याक्स भएर हो नि यो त एक्स प्लस हो क्या सेम सेम बत्ती प्लेक के हो यो कहाँबाट आउँछ यस्तो फोहोरहरू यार उयोहरू ठिकै छ नेट छैन रहेछ चार्ज सकिएको थियो कि त्यही भएर After writing thousands of travel visas for Jews in his consulate office in Lithuania, Chimin Sugihara was transferred from his post to later roles in Nazi-held Europe. In Czech, Slovakia bottom his positioned his family, wife, son, and sister-in-law for a photo outside a park with a sign that read "No Jews allowed" in German. Was that sign an incidental feature of the sort or a consciously included piece of bitter irony? For suggestive evidence, see if you can locate the sister sister-in-law's right hand. United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, courtesy of Hiroki Sugihara, both hotels. तिम्रो फोन चाहिँ एक बित्ताको रहेछ हजुर अरे कहाँ छ खोइ एक बित्ता फोटो देखेन एक बित्ता भन्नु Sugihara's decision to help thousands of Jews escape to Japan is likely not attributable to a single factor. Normally, multiple forces act and interact to bring about this kind of extraordinary benevolence. Benevolence भनेको के रहेछ BENE NE VO LENC LENCE परोपकार भने चाहिँ के रहेछ त धार्मिक सेवा सेवा होइन But in Sugihara's के बेपत्ता परोपकार भनेको सेवा हो But in Sugihara's but in Sugihara's case, one home-based factors stands out. उद्धार गरेको His father, a tax official who had been sent to Korea for a time, moved the family there and opened an inn. Sugihara remembered being powerfully affected by his parents' willingness to take in a broad mix of guests, tending to their basic needs for food and shelter in the family's home, even providing baths and washing their clothes, despite the fact that some were too impoverished to pay. From this perspective, we can see one reason an expanded sense of family flowing from exposure to diverse individuals in the home. For Sugihara's later efforts to help thousands of European Jews, as he stated in an interview 45 years after the events, the nationality and religion of the Jews did not matter. It mattered only that they were members with him in the human family, and they needed his help. His experience suggests a piece of advice for prospective parents who want their children to develop a broadly charitable nature. Give them contact in the home with individuals from a wide spectrum of backgrounds and treat those individuals there like family, locality, because humans evolved as a species from small but stable groupings of genetically related individuals. We have also evolved a tendency to favor the people who, outside the home, exist in close proximity to us. There is even a named ISM localism to represent the tendency. Its sometimes enormous influence can be seen from the neighborhood to the community level. A look back to a pair of incidents from the Holocaust offers a gripping confirmation. The first comes from the sociologist Ronald Cohen, who recounted a hideous, hideous from localism perpetrated. के हो यार hideous भनेको के हो अनि perpetrated भनेको के हो hideous hideous भनिरहेको छु serious अरे I H I यत्तरिका DEO EO EO US तिरक्क उठेर लेखा त hideous from the localism perpetrated. Oh my gosh, my wife is hideous. त भन्न मिलेन होला है मेरो रुन्ची बुढीलाई perpetrated भनेको के हो यो ER PE TRATED ATED perpetrated by a guard at a Nazi concentration camp. At such work भनेपछि घिनलाग्दो उयो गरेर रहेछ नि त recount hideous from a localism perpetrated by a guard. At such work camps, when just one prisoner violated a rule, it was not uncommon for all to be lined up, and for a guard to walk along the line counting to 10, stopping only to shoot each 10th person dead. In Channon's account, a veteran guard assigned this task was performing it is routinely as he always had when in inexplicably inexplicably in xpli cably y pli inex inex inexplicably No, earlier. He did something when always had when inexplicably he did something different, coming upon one seemingly unfortunate tenth prisoner. He raised an eyebrow and executed the 11th. It's possible to imagine several potential reasons for his action. Perhaps he had gotten good effort from the spared prisoner in the past or had noticed a high level of strength or intelligence or health that foretold of future productive work. But when asked to explain himself by another of the guards, Cohen's informant in the matter, it was clear that his choice sprang from none of these practical considerations. The simplicity of his stated justification speaks to its sufficiency. He had recognized the man as being from his hometown. After describing the incident in a scholarly article, Chen commented on a deeply contradictory aspect of it. While engaged dutifully in mass murder, the guard was merciful and sympathetic to one particular member of the victimized group. Although Cohen didn't pursue the related issue, it is important to identify the factor potent enough to turn a cold killer carrying out mass murder into a specifically focused, merciful, and sympathetic enactor. It was mutuality of place. Now, let's examine how that same unitizing factor during the same period of history produced a radically different outcome. Multiple historical accounts of rescuers of Holocaust era Jews reveal a little analyzed yet noteworthy phenomenon. In the great majority of instances, the rescuers who choose to house, feed, and hide these targets of Nazi persecution persecution did not spontaneously seek out of targets to targets to offer them needed help. Even more notably, they were typically not asked for that help by the victims themselves. Instead, the direct requester would most frequently be a relative or neighbor who petitioned them for assistance on behalf of a haunted individual or family. In a real sense, then, these rescuers didn't so much say yes to the needy strangers as to their own relatives and neighbors. Of course, it wasn't the case that no rescuers acted primarily out of compassion for victimized others. Protestant pastor Henry Trocum, after taking in an initial long refuge outside his door, persuaded other residents of his small French town of Le Chambon-sur-Lignon to sustain her work, conceal and smuggle away thousands of Jews during the Nazi occupation. The instructive feature of extraordinary story is not कति भयो 30 त भएछ त है how he arranged कसले 2 घण्टा पढ्छ यार मान्छेले how he arranged for the care of that first refugee but how he arranged for the care of the many that followed. He began by requesting the help of individuals who would have a difficult time saying no to him, his relatives and neighbors, and then pressed them to do the same among their relatives and neighbors. It was this strategic leveraging of existing unities that made him more than a compassionate hero. It made him an inordinately successful one as well. Oh my god, I am feeling tired. के गर्नु ला र तिम्रो मोबाइल बजाउनु ला हो त्यही त नि हेलो हजुर हेलो हेलो वाट्सअप सन्चै हुनुहुन्छ कतिखेर आउनुभयो हौ त्यो थाहै पाइनँ त्यो सानो गरेर है सानो गरेर आऊ हेलो हजुर हेलो आर यु देयर नो no you're not there sayonara 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 it's about to थितिएको रेलीले मुखै तितो बनायो तितेको रेलीले रेलीले झिमझिम परेलीले what time it does Minna no Nihongo गइसक्नु भयो हेलो हेलो कुमारी पुन्जी हेलो Bye. Psst, psst.